Right, I'll give you a little bit of how I make a mask. So, I get some clay, start off with. I always make a maquette to start off with, which involves getting about a fistful of clay, around about like that, and a clay tool, and we make, see how quickly I can come up with a face here. So, more or less the right shape there. Let's give him a nose, give him a nice big nose. Okay, there you go, give him a nice big nose, there we go, so he's sort of, what should we do? It's quite nice, that's a sort of nose, there we go, he's got a nice, then we're going to give him some eyes, so make a couple of little holes for his eyes there, stick a couple of eyeballs in like that, dum, dum, dum. It's a bit Rolf Harris-ish this, isn't it? So he hasn't got a chin at the moment, you have to allow for the person's face underneath, so let's give him a bit of a chin. Then use this old biro here, just give him a couple of eyeballs. He's looking a little bit, that's just a basic shape there. So I need to work out what kind of character he is. So let's give him a smiley face. Give him a smiley face like that. It's kind of slightly gormless character. It's the smile and the eyebrows that actually give the right impression of what you want. So if you move the eyebrows around, they kind of give you all sorts of different expressions. You have to remember the face is the most complex communication system in the universe. It's a tiny little millimetre here, for instance, with the way that the eyelid meets the pupil of the eye can mean a completely different expression. So we're beginning to sort of, I've got a clay tool here, I begin to sort of pat him around, but you can see if you change the angle of the eyebrows, you've got this sort of, he looks quite gormless at the moment and quite, oh, he's quite excited, quite excited. If you then change the eyebrows, see there, he's now kind of, he's definitely got intent, evil intent. So that'd be the first thing. I'll be looking around to try and find the right expression. You try and find, you then go for something like slightly more gormless. So I would then play around, maybe getting some nostrils, push up like that, play around, integrate the eyebrows a little bit more over the top. One of the important things is actually when you start to think about, well, how thoughtful is this character? How are they showing an emotion which is all out, or are they someone who is more thoughtful? Are they intensely angry, or are they more meditative in their approach to the world and what you want to show? And in order to make them more meditative, what you do is you put a little bit of eyelid action, tends to work, and you can see as soon as they go on, you begin to see it sort of makes him slightly more complex. So we've got a sort of basic shape there, and then what I would do is sort of just tidy him up and start to play with putting in a few more details, maybe smoothing him off, and then maybe playing around with, very important, the hair. So it's always quite a good idea to see what kind of hair this chap would have. So for instance, what seems to have come out there is a kind of sort of centre parting sort of, which has made him look a bit like a toff. He's a sort of, you can imagine him in an Eton suit maybe, something like that. So, but then if you do something where the hair sort of begins to come down over the face, his class begins to shift. There you go, looks more like a football hooligan now. Very important. So anyway, I would carry on with that until I end up with something like, shall we say, this one, who is that's dried, that's why it's a different colour now, but that's our lampwick, who is kind of, you can see, what I love about this is that you can start to incorporate lots of different elements actually into the face. So you can see on that eyebrow, if I put my hand over that side, he's actually quite evil. You can see that eyebrow is dropped, and he's definitely up to no good. Whereas if you put that side on that side of the face, you can see that he is actually sort of slightly bemused. And this is something that you can't actually do physically, but in a mask you can do it. And the secret to making a good mask is to be able to incorporate 2 or 3 different expressions which the audience will then interpret according to the way that you're moving your body. So What I'm trying to do in the writing is I will find in the writing all these different things that the mask is meant to do. So for instance, Lampwick in Pinocchio initially starts off as a nasty piece of work and then ends up being turned into a donkey. And the process of being turned into a donkey with his donkey ears, then shows that side of the face rather more than he does that. But initially he starts off with that. You also get quite a nice effect when you turn a mask round towards the audience and it starts off looking quite sympathetic, and then you see the evil eye coming round, and it gives the impression that the mask begins to move. What I'm also interested in, and this is unusual for mask makers, but I get very bored by symmetry, and the simple reason for this is I'm right-handed, and so you'll work on the right hand of the mask, right-hand side, and then on the left hand it'll be slightly different. And rather than spending lots of time evening it up, which I used to do a lot, I then began to play the difference between balance and symmetry. So you can see, for instance, I give him a little bag under the eye on that side, and he's slightly goofy. The teeth probably prefigure him becoming a donkey, but again, going back to that Victorian idea of the first impressions, it does make him look slightly goofy, whilst at the same time you've incorporated a sort of a bit of a jackass with somebody who's no good, with somebody who also gets into trouble. So 3 elements. He's got a bit of a piggy nose as well, you see from the side. So lots of things in there, lots of things. So that I would then transfer into a full-size head to be able to make a mask. So I'll pop that down there. And here's the one that I've done. You can see he's sort of been scaled up, and he's got various, that's clay, and underneath here is a head of the actress who's going to play him. Maybe a head like this. I will have taken a cast of their head. This is one of the other actors. It doesn't need to be one of those really, really accurate ones. I mean, what I'm interested in is the distance between the lips. So you can see I've got a very, very clear demarcation of where the lips are and the eyes, which will be there. Everybody's eyes are more or less the same distance apart, but the distance between the eyes and the mouth is actually very, very different on each person. So for instance, if I show you that one, and then Ben, my beautiful assistant, will pass me across that one, which is over there, just by your right hand.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. Thanks. Thank you, darling. So if you have a look, this is the other guy who's in the show. This is Sam. You can see the difference in the shape of their face. See how there's another 2 inches on that face. Absolutely massive. So, and I've got a face like a horse. So, yes, it's very important to get that distance right. Otherwise, the mask will come down over the mouth, and all the voice will go up into the mask, or it'll be too short, and you'll get this idea of the teeth coming out of the bottom of the mask. So once I've done that, and I've smoothed it off, going just putting the clay into shape and making sure that you can see the teeth there just come over the bottom lip, but that will be, the teeth will stick slightly proud, so in fact the voice will still be able to come out. Doesn't look much at that point, but what I would do is I then put this onto the vac former over here. So that would go onto the vac former. This is a very, very magic piece of equipment. Vac formers, I think, as far as I know, there's only really 2 ways of forming plastic, and one is injection moulding, for which you have to make a tool that comes together and forms a mould, and it costs about £10,000 to make each tool to be able to do that, so that's out of the question. And the other one is this, which is vacuum forming using a piece of plastic like that. This is a thermoplastic known as HIPS, which stands for high impact polystyrene, and people are always slightly worried when I tell them my masks are made of polystyrene because they think they're going to break and sort of bobble off, but no, it's tough stuff. So you have your mould on a platform there, and so that goes down, and nice flat surface, and you've got your plastic, it goes on like that. And this is essentially sealed around the edge, and when this comes up, you see that seals on there, and it will suck out all the air between the plastic and the mould. So let's see if we can do it. Put that on there. That on there. This is the secret part, which is the heater. What I've actually done with this one, again, this is our Pinocchio mould, because I wanted to get the harder lines on here and make him look carved and differentiate him from the other masks. what I've done is I've taken a plaster of Paris mould of a clay, and then I've really gone in and I've sanded in and carved in to make sure that he looks really, really nice and carved. Because that's one of the problems with Pinocchio, is the fact that he has to look like a puppet, and he's got to look like a real boy. And also, when you're wearing a mask, if you change the mask too much, suddenly it's another character. So that's a little thing that we're solving in the show. So, pop that back on there. Let's have a look and see how our plastic is doing underneath here. It's going wobbly, but it's not quite ready yet. You develop asbestos fingers doing this job. So that will take a little more time. Right, that's nice and soft now. It's sort of like quivering. So if I push that up, this is the magic moment. Then I press the button. Oh, I don't even need a cloth. There we go. Lovely. So if I then pick that up, very hot still, you can see that the whole shape has been taken up by the plastic. Now over here is one I've made earlier, I suspect, because these are all the ones I'm making for the show. There we go. So there he is, all nicely sort of ready with his teeth, bits and pieces. You lose a little bit of detail as you go over, which is why you have to sort of make sure that the lines are nice and crisp. It doesn't look much at this stage, but once he's painted, you come back to our Bob Cratchit. And one of the things I really enjoy, one of the discoveries I made over the years of mask making, is I started to use green against the red. I paint them with a combination of acrylics as a base coat, and then I use oil paints over the top. And a lot of people, when they see our shows, say, well, I thought they were soft, and they come up, they touch the mask, and they get to try them on at the end of the show, which I really enjoy. I think it's one of the best parts of actually giving a show to people, is that you break that fourth wall. And one of the marvellous things is that because it's mask, and because the characters have all gone back on their pegs, there's no afterglow on the actors. The actors aren't being associated with being the role anymore, so the audience feels like they can come up and talk to you and ask any question they want. They often do. We do get a standard questions, which is or comments, which is after the wife has taken the mask off, the husband asks her to take the mask off. We count those. We normally get 100 or so of those on tour. We get the "oh, you all look so young." And lots of other comments like that. Yeah, you see it's quite hard, and he is, one of the discoveries I made was to start using green to low light the mask. And one of the reasons for that is actually, you can see in our, we've got quite a lot of green in our skin as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Lucian Freud. If you look at his paintings, an enormous amount of green. And what that actually does is it creates a vulnerability on one hand. You get that sense of something that's there's actually, behind the mask. The mask is actually carrying on through the body that it's living on top of. It's not just sitting on. What it also does is, because you've got two opposite colours, which are the red and the green, they're working against each other. Because they're opposite colours, they begin to sort of fizz in the way that in your eye, and they begin to make the surface look a lot softer. So yeah, that's the finished article. Put a wig over the top. It's one of the things you don't want with a mask, is for the join onto the face to show too much, because that will kill the mask. It will remind the audience that you're wearing a mask too much. But as soon as you actually put a wig on the mask and actually disguise that, this join round the mouth should fit the face fairly well, because you've taken a cast of the actor's face, and then you should be well away. And then it's the next thing you do is starting to find the character. And we do a lot of playing around in the first few days. We're just putting the mask on and doing a thing called like hot seating, where you begin to ask the character questions, and some of it can be quite technical. It can just be us sitting around watching somebody with a mask on and saying, oh, that works really well, or that works very well. It's a combination of finding where the energy is, which is very, very technical. It's a little bit dance-ish. I mean, if you go around a supermarket, you'll find that people hold their energy in very, very different ways. And also, they will be expressing their energy on different levels. And so there's this enormous matrix of lots of things that you can add into a mask technically. Like, well, they're quite a manic person, so their energy is up on 9 or 10 out of 10. and yet at the same time they might be holding their energy down here, sort of right in the pelvis. Or they could be, if you begin to hold your energy up here, up to the top of your head, you're actually it changes your personality completely. And it's the complete opposite to method acting. It's very outside in, but for that, I don't necessarily think that actually makes it a lesser character. In fact, it's much, much quicker, and you can come up with characters that are endlessly intriguing within sometimes seconds. I go into workshops and I work with all sorts of people, and you will always find there are one or two who put a mask on and completely transform themselves into somebody else, and you forget within seconds who is behind that mask. And there's something quite deep that's going on there. And it's no mistake that sort of ancient religions have used masks and puppets as part of their ritual. And in an age when we're constantly being told, well, you buy this and you'll be able to show who you are, it's very interesting to see actually quite how transient idea is, and how naturally as human beings we slip from one to another, to another, to another. And it's always a source of laughter. There's always a source of release, which I always find quite interesting. So yeah, that's how we make a mask.